Hey, I just wanted to make a quick video to go over how to get started with Waveform. Waveform is a free music software or digital audio workstation that, for being free, is actually pretty solid. It just requires you to kind of build it with more instruments and effects and things to get it just a bit more functional than what it comes with pre-installed. So today we're going to go over how to get started with your first track and how to put hopefully your first virtual instrument into a track. So if you open up Waveform, it should have a little purple logo with this white W on your desktop or in your applications folder or your program files folder or wherever it's saved to. You're going to see when you open it this screen here, and you'll see in the bottom left this new project, this blue button. You're going to want to click on that. Don't worry about these other settings for now. We may talk a little bit about maybe the templates and how to make those at some point. But for now, let's get started with, you're just going to name the song. If you know the name of your song, like something that'll be like recognizable, that's the best thing to name it. But obviously, if you don't know the name of your song, you name something weird, like I name my songs like Songy or Song 4000 or whatever. But then once you've made it, you're going to open it, and it'll call up with this interface. And this is where we're actually going to work on recording things. You'll notice there's a couple different things here. There's this little side scroll that has kind of the different parts of Waveform that you can use, and we'll talk about that in a second. There's also this area over here, which is where we actually have our tracks and where you'll put the sounds into what you're recording. You'll notice here if I enable this, because this is the arm for the track, this little record here, it turns it on, so it'll start recording things when you press this global record button. I don't even know if I press it, you'll hear my voice echoing from my microphone right now. But we're going to talk today about how to add a plugin to one of these tracks. So if you look over here in this category section, you'll notice it says plugins at the top. If you click on that, I think you'll probably only have Waveform, and if you've installed it already, which I'll hopefully have sent a link to both this and to this Surge XT synth, you'll have this Surge synth team thing as well. If you double click this, there's a good chance the first time you open it, it'll pop up with a warning about opening like a single wrapper thing. If you click the don't show again there and then click the far left option, the single plugin, it'll never make you do that again, which I recommend doing so you don't have to see that every single time. There's a lot of stuff in Surge XT, and also it's too big to fit on my window. You'll see I'll scroll the rest of it across here. Bunch of things here. It just, I don't know why it just doesn't scale right on this monitor specifically. But if you go in here, for now we're not going to worry about too much of those stuff. At some point we might talk about how to play with the like sine waves maybe a little bit over here, and how to make like things sound different based on, you know, this little oscillation of sound that you're using. There's a lot of really crazy ones if you go through some of these. But for now, we're just going to talk about some of these pre-made sounds. And if you go over here, you'll notice it pulls up like little options for each of these people's names. And you can pick whatever you want, try some things, see if you find something that hopefully doesn't sound terrible. Once you have it, you'll go back to your track and exit out of this. And if you have a MIDI keyboard, you won't have to do this. But if you don't, you can still make recordings with your computer keyboard, which for getting started, I think is a great way to do it, just so you don't have to drop a bunch of money. But if you have this going and you arm your track, arming your track is really important if you want to record something. You should get it. To pull up and play some sounds here, which that sounds pretty cool. We'll play around with this as the synth we use for today. Cool. The other thing is, you can record straight like that, and that's okay. You'll probably want to make sure you turn on your metronome, which you'll see is down here if you do it that way, which will give you 4 clicks in each measure, or 3 or whatever, depending on how you set up your track. You can change those things down here, like the 4/4 time and the tempo of your recording. For now, just stick with 120 because it's just a test recording. Don't worry about playing around too much with doing a bunch of different things with these tracks. But I actually think the better way to get a recording started is to use a drum loop of some kind. And if you click over here, you will see there are a few more things over here that you can click through. One of them is this clips section. And this software comes with a bunch of little drum clips pre-installed. They'll be at whatever tempo you set your track to, once again. So if you're set to 120 beats per minute, you're going to get drum tracks that are going to play at 120 beats per minute. Click through a couple of these, see if you can find one you don't maybe hate the sound of. But this is probably not going to be maybe what you end up with. I just think they're a good way to get started. Yeah, cool. That's kind of like a little, I don't know, like a hard step EDM sort of vibe thing there. Something I like to do when I do this, though, you want to make sure you... wait, actually, we don't want to put this into Surge XT. You don't want to do this just maybe one at a time, because it's not going to be super long for recording. So maybe copying and pasting a few of these is a good idea. There we go. And just, you know, make a few long enough things so you can actually record for a little bit here. Cool. And then what you're going to need to do, since this is not going to have an instrument in it yet, you'll see over here, like we have the Surge XT on this first track. You can go back to these plugins, and they do have a few pre-installed instruments in this Waveform folder, which you should have here as well. If you pull up this Rompler, it's going to be a little drum processor. There aren't that many options, and this is really more to just get you something to play along with for now, but you can select any of these. If you double click it here, it'll now let you actually listen to those drums. Oh. It should. There we go. I don't know why that didn't work the first time. It'll sound a little different probably because the drums in that Rompler aren't going to be the exact same sound as what we had. Oh. Why didn't I just press that close that menu? Okay, there we go. It's the B button. Don't push the B button, apparently. Okay. And then once we have that, we can go back to our little synth track here, and we can maybe try and record something. So you want to, if you don't have a MIDI keyboard yet, that's fine. But every time you're going to try and record something without a MIDI keyboard, if you're going to use your computer keyboard, you have to have this pulled up. Otherwise, it won't do anything. So that keyboard button down here is really important, because otherwise it won't let you type your keyboard as notes. Click back into this here. Cool. And then you got a little thing there. You're probably not going to want to just make one, like, you know, single track. So if we go back here, you should be able to... I can get this to scroll. We don't want that garbage at the start that I didn't really make look very well. But if you go back to the Surge XT, you can put it in another track, right? And you can keep doing this, add as many tracks as you want, but maybe we want like a more of like a bass sound. So we'll pull up one of these people down here and see kind of bass sounds we have. I don't know what any of these will sound like, but let's try better FM bass here. Once again, to pull up this so we can actually hear. And something that's important for this, you'll notice here it says octave, Z/X. If you press Z and X, it will change the pitch. So if you're doing a bass, you probably don't want to be at C4 because that's going to be kind of a high pitch. C2 might be a little low, but I don't know, we got... Yeah, let's try C3 as our bass sound, because this is a pretty deep, like, sub-bassy sound. Cool. That'll work it well enough, I think, to get us at least something here. So then we'll do the same thing again. We'll go back over here, and we'll press record. We'll make sure to reselect this MIDI typing window, because it won't let us type if we don't. Cool. When we get to the spot in the song here, we'll try and put something over this here. And it's as simple as that. The things you're going to make when you start out, you know, the first couple recordings are probably going to sound bad. I mean, this is my, it's been a few minutes here. We've actually been working in the software. Doesn't sound perfect. I would definitely, if I was going to make a real recording, make some of this better. But one thing you do, you notice this recording is maybe not perfectly on beat. I think some of these are supposed to be offbeat. They definitely are supposed to be offbeat notes, like on the and, but they're a little off of where they should be. You can actually go in if you double click on these little MIDI files, and you can edit the position. You can also edit like the volume of some of these notes. It's a little velocity thing right here. Currently, we're recording it because we're using my keyboard. If you use a MIDI synthesizer, you'll be able to, you know, get different velocities out of what you record, because it'll control that based on how hard you press the keys. But you can actually change the volume of individual notes. That'll be that velocity down here. You can change the position of them so they may be more gridded towards being on the actual beat. So like maybe that'll sound a little better when it... I think these are still maybe need to get pushed a little back too, because I pushed that on the back. Oh, whoa. Let's try that and see if that sounds any better. But obviously, you know, hopefully you'll record well enough if you want to do with any of this stuff. But see if you can try and come up with a little recording for as an assignment this week, right? It's not going to be perfect. For now, you can stick with these little stock drums. We'll eventually talk about how to go in and actually make your own beats using something like Rompler or our own software. I probably don't want to just do dragging and dropping as many notes as you can, although some of my students, when we work on stuff, will just do something like this. Winds up being like a million sounds at once. But we will talk more about a lot of this other stuff. For now, though, see if you can make a track. Make a recording, get a couple tracks put in, try and put a drum track in, add your Rompler. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to save them, maybe write them down for me for next week, and we'll talk about it, okay? But good luck. Make something good.